see. And as I do that, if folks from that agency could introduce themselves. Let's start with SCTA. I'm Dana Teray.
Drew Nichols.
Chris Barney.
Suzanne Smith.
And Golden Gate Transit.
Jacob Brown.
Smart.
Emily Betts.
Chris Spearden.
San Rosa City Bus.
Matthew Wilcox.
And Sean Sosa.
Sonoma County Transit.
Stephen Schmitz.
And Brian Albee.
And Marin Transit.
Robert Betts.
Great, thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the meeting notes from July 14th. You will notice that the format, oh, I'm sorry, it's not actually on this one yet, sorry. Does anybody have any comments or corrections on the meeting notes? All right, and can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to item number 3 is the Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force. Public Transit Transformation Action Plan. As you all know, in July, the Blue Ribbon Task Force approved a set of actions, and we are just keeping this item on the agenda for any discussion that you all want to have relating to the actual plan or any of the subcommittees that some of you have been involved with throughout this process. So I will just open it up for discussion. And if there is none, then we can move on. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Future of Transit Ad Hoc update. So we have not had a meeting in a little while, but we did make an ask to MTC for some funding to move through phase 2 of the transit integration and uniform branding for the 3 local bus operators. And MTC did award funding for us to get started on that. We are currently working on refining the scope for that work based off of the presentation that we gave to MTC for the phase 2 items. We're just building that out and also working on figuring out how to obligate the funding. We expect to receive the funding early, probably December or January. And we do have a Future of Transit Ad Hoc meeting coming up tomorrow. We'll be discussing that scope as well as the funding and updates on service and ridership from the operators. I will open it up to anybody who wants to add anything or if anybody has any questions. All right. Well, then we can move on to transit operator updates. Who would like to go first? Smart?
Thank you. Let's see, I don't have a lot to report. August ridership was up a little over July. Not as much as we'd hoped with the return of students, but we'll see what September brings. You may have seen in the paper some headline like "Smart Restoring Full Service." But if you read the fine print, you'll see that we actually need to hire 4 more operators, which will take at least 6 months. So Smart Restoring Full Service sometime next year should be the full headline. Let's see, we're taking our Title VI report to the board this coming week. And I think that's all I have to report for this meeting.
All right, thanks, Emily. And San Rosa City Bus.
I can give an update kind of on operations. So we are up about 17% between August and July of this year. Probably a lot of that's due to school because if the group may or may not know, we launched our youth free program in July. In August, we had about 13,000 youth riders use the system for free. So it's a pretty big boost. So in raw numbers, from July to August, about 10,000 rider growth. So I would say that most of that is probably school, and maybe some people dropping off too, because obviously those numbers don't align perfectly. So that's kind of where we are operationally from a ridership standpoint. And we're hoping that program continues to grow because the word's still getting out there about kids being able to ride for free. We've had a couple schools that we have tripper service to, specifically San Rosa Middle School, not have any riders in the first month. But I think that's because those students have never actually been on campus and we're not aware of that bus stopping right in front of their school. So hopefully that'll help boost those ridership numbers even further. That's kind of where we are. And then from year over year, we're up, I think, 47%. So people are coming back and hopefully that trend continues. I don't know if Sean has anything to add in the other parts of what we do.
The only thing I have to add is last week, our council, we took an item to get approval for our Proterra buses to lease the battery packs. We kind of did it interesting to make sure we would qualify for HVIP. Last year in November, we went to our council to ask for approval to buy buses with the intent to go back to council to get approval to lease the batteries. And so last week, Tuesday, we went, took it to council. Probably because of the COVID item that was on the agenda, there were no questions from council, so they approved it. So now we have council approval to buy the 4 buses and to lease the 4 batteries. Since November, we've been working with Proterra to build the buses. So essentially now we've got the approvals, we've got the build done. Now we're just kind of in final workings with our city attorney and their Proterra's attorney to get the agreements settled on, and we'll be issuing a PO. So if everything goes according to plan, our build slot with Proterra is to have the buses delivered in May or June. So that's kind of where we're standing with our electric bus right now. And we're waiting for the CalAct contract that went out for procurement. We're anticipating that we would like to get an Oakmont vehicle from that to get an electric Oakmont vehicle. So I think the last time I heard from somebody from CalAct was a few months ago, and they were expecting the end of the year for it to open up. So that's kind of what we're holding on for to see if that shows up. And then with our MSC Electrification, we just got our 65% plan review from the contractor that we made some comments on. And they're still on track for like a December, January final build of the phase 1A of our electrification here at our yard. So we're getting close.
Great.
Sean, a question for you. I'm not familiar with Oakmont. Is that a fixed route paratransit bus? What kind of vehicle are we talking?
Deviated route. It's a little bit larger than a normal paratransit cutaway. I can't remember. I think it's like a 29-foot bus.
It's an RBOC, if you're familiar with
Oh.
those brands, which are like 28, 29 feet.
So yeah, it's strictly, it's a fixed route in Oakmont only, but it does deviate for any calls, 3/4 of a mile away. And then it also does shopping trips on a few days. So Montgomery Village and I think the Calistoga Shopping Center or something like that.
Thanks, I get it now. I thought that was the name of the bus type,
Oh,
not
yeah.
the area of Santa Rosa. Now I get it.
Hey, Matt, you had mentioned that you saw a jump of about 10,000 riders with the school program. Is that passenger trips that you saw jump, or do you actually have 10,000 students that applied for the program?
It's 10,000 total rider jump.
Okay.
But if you look at our fare data, specifically all our youth categories, and specifically the one, it's about 13,000 trips that happened in August. So it seems that in other categories, we saw a drop off because our net gain, at least on the weekdays, was about 10,000 riders. So we've lost and gained, but it seems that the youth program is doing what it's supposed to be doing at this point.
And Matt, you don't have to apply for that program, right? You just have to be a youth and you receive a free ride.
Yeah, we ask that kids, try and ID as much as possible, and we have passes for them that they can get just for like an extra level of security. But we've asked our drivers to be really liberal. I mean, if a kid looks like a kid, not to like fight them for identification and just let them on the bus. But there's no application process. It's just more of if you can prove that you're 18 or younger, then you're allowed on the bus for free.
And the JCC, they ride for free already?
Yeah, and that program requires them to have their ID for that, because that is the JC is helping fund that program. So it's a little more structured. And Sean can comment on the funding for the other one, but I think it's TFCA is paying for the youth free program at this point.
Great, thank you. Golden Gate, would you like to go next?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. We have a service change starting this Sunday. I may have mentioned in the past, we will be expanding Route 101 to operate every 30 minutes during rush hour. Otherwise, service in Sonoma County will be mostly unchanged. And in December, we'll make more changes, TBD on exactly what happens. Ridership has been flat all summer for us, for bus and for ferry. So we're not seeing any increase with people back in school. We were hoping to see some more people back into commuting as part of the school cycle, but it seems like the Delta variant has scared everyone away from going back into an office. So we'll see if we get an uptick later this year or maybe in 2022. Let's see. Other than that, the only other thing that I have, I don't know if Jacob has anything to add, but on the service side of things, still have a few outstanding items with Jared. And so I don't know if we can maybe set up a time to talk, but still getting pressure. The Route 101 alignment through downtown Petaluma is not working for us. So we need some sort of resolution to that, hopefully in the near future, as well as a couple other bus stop items. So that's it from us. Unless Jacob has something.
Thanks, David. I did have one thing quickly. I know a lot of the operators are giving updates on electric bus procurement. So I just wanted to say a little bit about that. We are not quite at the procurement stage at Golden Gate, but we've recently started having several meetings about what the rollout might look like. And we have the plan, the CARB ICT plan, but that we did to meet the requirement. But with COVID and service uncertainty, we have some questions about how closely we want to follow that plan in the beginning. So we're beginning a lot of discussions and starting to examine this question. But I did have one question for the group, for Sean or for anyone. I know everybody, all the Sonoma operators are beginning to purchase buses. Is there any is there any coordination amongst the group in terms of what buses are being purchased, or any maybe planning about shared charging facilities or anything along those lines that's been happening?
I can say we did have a study that was sponsored by Sonoma Clean Power through the Cadmus Group, and they got in touch with all the Sonoma County operators. It was Sonoma County study on, just electrification in general, and, what charging options there were. And from what I gathered, the Transit Mall is really the only place that most of the operators meet, but really there weren't long enough stops like by Sonoma County Transit to really benefit from it, to have, overhead charging installed in their buses and to have it installed at the Transit Mall. It was pretty cost prohibitive from what I remember. So, that's kind of what we have based our kind of future goals as far as purchasing and electrification on. That has caused us to decide, it's going to be a universal battery charger. So, hopefully everybody else is kind of on that same route, but it's going to be, we're doing a depot charging, and we're doing strictly depot charging on the bus. So we're not even buying an overhead charger capable bus to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say pretty similar from Petaluma's perspective. We anticipate that depot charging will probably give us all that we need. So we're not really planning on doing anything at the facilities. If we did, it would probably be Copeland Transit Mall. And we haven't really had much discussion on that with either Sonoma County or Golden Gate. In terms of procurement, we haven't really done one altogether, one joint procurement, although I think pretty much all of us work off of existing joint procurements through the state or someone like that in terms of when we purchase them.
Yeah, and for the county, we're looking mainly depot charging, but also in-route charging at the end of the line. So up north be Cloverdale, Sonoma Plaza to the east, Petaluma Transit Mall to the south, and then out in Monterey to the west. We're also looking to do local charging, or for the local shuttle Windsor. Healdsburg, we introduced electric bus on August 8th, and we were able to do that without opportunity charging. So that's all depot charging. So we kind of have a mix, but it's mainly at the end of the lines. It's not in Santa Rosa.
And the first 4 buses that we're getting are the Proterra 675 watt battery. We just opted for, because we're doing depot charging, that get the biggest battery we can, that can do all the day's activities, come back with a decent enough state of charge. The fact that we're leasing it, we're going to get a replacement battery at year 6. So any degradation of the battery shouldn't be an issue for the 12-year term of the lease. If we do have the buses longer than 12 years, we'll either renegotiate a lease or, buy the pack we have or something like that with Proterra. So that's how we decided to start our procurement, is go with the biggest without having to do many other things like build out infrastructure. And as the years go on, see if that's really the way we need to keep going.
Jacob, I think you talked to Anna from our team last week, but I think similarly, we're looking at a universal charger for the buses. I still feel like the industry is still early on in testing electric vehicles. You see many agencies that are going out and buying from different manufacturers just to test the range and the capabilities of these vehicles. So I think what at least I've observed in the North Bay is we're still kind of in that testing phase to figure out what the preferred manufacturer will be. As you know, we have 2 BYDs and we're purchasing 4 Gilligs. That'll arrive later this fall. And actually on Monday, we're taking award for our infrastructure upgrades in Novato to electrify that facility. So yeah, I think we're still learning, still testing. And we are optimistic that if we have good success with the Gillig, we know that everything about that bus is exactly the same as our hybrid Gilligs, except of course the battery pack. So we're looking forward to testing out that new vehicle.
Thank you all. Appreciate the updates.
I just wanted to point out that this is all great discussion. We do have a transit electrification item a little bit later on the agenda, and Brant Arthur, who is now with Sonoma Clean Power, is actually going to be joining us and wants to talk a bit about the low carbon fuel standard program and see if there's a way that they might be able to help folks get more out of that program. So just want to give you a heads up. He should be joining in the next 10 minutes or so. You definitely don't have to repeat all of the discussion you've had, but we will be talking about this again later in the agenda. All right, so was that everything for Golden Gate update?
I think so, yeah.
Great. Let's move on to Sonoma County Transit.
Yeah, good. Well, we introduced new schedules on August 8th. We're about 80% of our pre-COVID level service. We thought we'd be at 85, but it turned out to be a little more efficient than we thought. And so we have our next round of schedule changes, additions now scheduled for December 12th, which will get us up to about 85, 86% of our pre-COVID level. We saw a pretty substantial increase in ridership between July and August, where we saw a 24% increase. So that was good after many months of really stagnant ridership. We're up about 1,600 riders per day. It has been going up. We're mainly seeing student ridership, but also some adult ridership coming back. So it's good in terms of ridership. Still low numbers. It's still about 47, 48% of our pre-pandemic level of ridership, but it's coming back slowly. In terms of our electrification, we have 3 BYD 30-foot buses. We have 3 on order, which will be here next April or May, and we're contemplating ordering 6 additional 35 and 40-foot buses that will be here next December. I think by Friday we'll have 3 chargers in the yard. Will be an increase from 1, and then we're working on our new lot with 10 chargers, which ultimately will serve 20 buses, and that will keep us going for a number of years. And we're also working on opportunity charging, the in-route charging at the 4 locations I talked about earlier. But we also are looking at Windsor for the local service. So that's what's going on. And Steve, do you have anything?
I think you covered it all.
Great.
Sorry about that, muted. All right, thank you. How about Petaluma Transit?
Good morning, everyone. So ridership for us was up 19% on fixed route in the past month compared to the same month year prior. Paratransit was down by 7%. So that seems to be a bit more impacted by kind of the various COVID impacts recently. Been doing a lot of work on our fall schedule, which started last month and has been running smoothly overall. We've been spending a good amount of time on agency recruitment and retention, similar to most of the people here, I'd imagine. We're trying to find more operators, which has been difficult. We're also trying to find a road supervisor and a maintenance manager as well. Couple other items. The bike share item will appear before our city council on September 13th. And so I believe we'll be the last one to sign that. So hopefully everything goes smoothly there. We've had a few issues here in the transit yard of thefts recently, with people going onto our buses and stealing a few pieces of hardware like radios and a couple of cameras. And so we've been doing additional work here in the facility to beef up security with fences, with cameras, things along those lines. The city is currently updating its general plan, and so a number of meetings have been held in that regard to kind of kick off the process and start getting feedback from different quadrants of the city. They held a series of meetings for all the different parts of Petaluma, and people are giving feedback to that process, obviously not just transit related, but everything encompassed within the city. And so transit is part of that, along with a couple of other initiatives that are moving forward pretty quickly regarding VMT considerations for the city, vehicle miles traveled, And then TDM plan requirements, transportation demand management, that may be associated with new developments coming in. So all of those items kind of touch transit in a direct, indirect way were involved. And that is about it.
Great, thank you, Jared. And Marin Transit.
We also saw a nice growth in ridership from July to August with the return of students. We're seeing between 1,000 and 1,200 additional trips starting in mid-August with the return of schools, which is a nice growth. It's about a 20% growth for our ridership. And we're now seeing some days as close to 70% of pre-COVID ridership levels. So almost 7,000 daily trips we're seeing now with the return of school. We're pretty close to 100% of our service levels. We're experiencing for the first time driver shortages, and those decided to show up right when school started, and they were really specific to our school contractors. So we've been working to try and stabilize drivers on that operation. But it's also impacted our Muirwood shuttle service. We've had to decrease service on the Muirwoods program as well. So aside from the driver shortages, we're pretty much at 100% of service levels from pre-pandemic. We have a full agenda going to our board on Monday. We are making a recommendation for the award of our Marin Access paratransit contract. That is a service we provide in partnership with Golden Gate Transit, and it includes all of our ADA paratransit as well as our on-demand service, our dial-a-ride services, and some shopper shuttles. It also includes eligibility and travel training and mobility management. So it's a big contract and a big award that will go on Monday. And as I also mentioned, we're taking our facility electrification project for award to the board on Monday. I think I reported at the last meeting, but our board in August approved a couple free fare promotion activities. The next promotional campaign will start in October, and we're going to do 6 months of free senior ADA fixed route service. So that'll go October through March on the fixed route program. I think those are our updates.
So is that senior ADA service, is that your regular paratransit service or?
No, on the just on the fixed route.
On the fixed route, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Did I miss anyone for updates? We covered everyone? Okay. Great. Well, let's move on to item number 6, which is transit electrification. Sean actually asked to bring up the CARB low carbon fuel standard program, but we can also broaden this discussion to other transit electrification bus purchase items. Some of you covered that in your updates, but I would, just let's start with the low carbon fuel standard program or low carbon fuel standard credits program. And Sean, did you want to start off with some questions or what City Bus is working on for that program?
Yeah, definitely not the working on. It's definitely on the question phase, which is why we don't have chargers or buses yet. But this kind of came up because I keep telling everybody we're getting close, and I realize, wow, if we're getting close, I need to be ready. So, I always get these emails about LCFS from CARB or whoever this administers it about, the public input and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like the program might be, slightly changing here and there, but going onto their website, it's like links to about 12 documents. And, I honestly just don't want to get involved with trying to deal with it. I'm busy and I don't want to add one more convoluted thing to my workload. So I was just wondering, primarily, one, is anybody else already doing the LCFS credits? And if so, are you doing it yourself? or hiring somebody, because Proterra has their own program where they basically do the work and then take like 8% and give us the rest. And I'm just curious what other people have done or are thinking of doing, and just trying to get the, you know, what the other land is like.
Maybe no one else has looked into this yet. So Brant is now with Sonoma Clean Power, and they've been looking into this a little bit. So Brant, if you want to kind of share what you guys have been looking at and what might be able to.
Sure. Yeah. So we've been looking into low carbon fuel standard credits for DC fast chargers, but also looking at what the value of those could be for our customers. We don't have a program yet, but I'm trying to kind of do the math about how we could return the value of those to our customers for investing in electrification. I was reading back through the studies that we all worked with you with Cadmus on in 2019. And I know that I think some of the math on there was looking at, could the value of low carbon fuel standard credits help make on-site generation or battery storage, to lower your energy costs more feasible. There's kind of two things that happens with low carbon fuel standards. So you just have the energy dispensed, and then there's kind of two ways you can sell it, either through using the California, carbon, like base carbon intensity for the state, or you can sell it as being zero carbon electricity, where you get even more value. And that's something that we've been able to do through selling some of our renewable energy credits from renewable energy projects in Sonoma County. So I would be interested in exploring this if this is something that you would like to look into more. I know like the 2019 study, I think for City Bus, had I think a $3 million total over the life of the LCFS. So LCFS was originally scheduled to sunset in 2020, and then in 2018, they extended it out to 2030, which was kind of a vote of confidence in LCFS as a program. Seeming that we now have, goals for 2045, I could see it being extended, but it's definitely something that we either take advantage now, or, it's going to eventually, or it's scheduled to eventually go away. And the value goes down each year between now and 2030. So you'll get more return now. So I'm curious if y'all have kind of looked at this in terms of the amount of electricity you're dispensing at the moment and how you see that growing between now and 2030.
Yeah, so part of the reason too that we were looking at it is it seems like all of the things that we're doing with electrification are piecemeal. We would love to have just all the money to do everything all at once and just build it all out, but we don't. So with the PG&E EV fleet program, they're only allowing us to look at a 5-year electrification plan. So that's how much infrastructure they're installing. So that's kind of how we made our initial phase of electrification, was to match that, just a 5-year. And then to reduce that cost, we went down from the 5 chargers PG&E is requiring us to install down to 3, because we're like, we don't have 10 buses yet to need 5 chargers for. We're going to be getting 4 for sure in the next year, probably 5 to 7, a year after that, we'll probably get another 2 or 3. So we only need about 3 chargers to begin with. So by the end of this year, we'll have 3 chargers installed. By mid 2022, we'll have the chargers, and then we'll get our first 4 buses. So we won't actually be charging buses until probably the start of fiscal 23. That said, though, the chargers we're getting installed are ABB. The buses we're buying are Proterra. The chargers being installed are not having any additional software other than, just like whatever is coming with the chargers. So it's basically going to be 3 chargers, 4, maybe 5 or 6 buses, plug them in, charge, and that's it. We don't really need to worry about, charge this bus to 80%, move on to the next, then go back to the 80% to top it off. We have enough chargers, enough buses for the initial rollout. But part of the thing too, I was wondering is once we start getting more buses, we have to start more software management with our chargers. Will LCFS be part of that? What data does LCFS need for us to get the credits? Are we having to, do an RFP for some sort of special software, or is the data that the charger is going to be providing on, the standard software that comes to the charger? Are we going to have enough data from that? I don't want to wait until we get the charger, start charging and realize, now it's time to apply for LCFS and then find out, oops, we were missing one data point that this particular software doesn't provide, and we should have gotten data management software or something like that. So it's just kind of looking into it now. But then when I started looking at just a page with all the documents, I was like, I remember Proterra saying that they would manage it for us. Maybe I should ask if everybody's hired out to do it or if anybody's doing it themselves. So very exploratory right now because we don't have any charging infrastructure or buses yet, but that's where we're at and hoping to be prepared for when we start doing so.
Yeah, that 8% sounds similar to what I've heard from other folks. We talked to NRG, I think they were talking about 10%, and they were going to do that kind of swap for zero carbon electricity. You could have a separate meter for them, like that would be great. But we do our residential program, so we have sent out over 3,300 residential chargers, and we collect and reinvest the credits from those, and those are just broken up by the software that comes with the charger. So I think all chargers have some level of software built into them today, but I can certainly get back to you on kind of the quality of data that you would need in order to claim those credits. That would help inform your decision.
Yeah, that would be helpful. And the good thing with what we're doing with PG&E EV Fleet is our chargers are going to be on their own meter. So we'll be able to take advantage of, I don't know if it's actually been enacted yet or if it's still pending or if PG&E dropped it with all this bankruptcy stuff, but their electric bus charging rate, that was part of the discussion, like in the last couple of years with PG&E was like, you have to have a special charger on an individual meter to get that special rate. And with EV Fleet, it all made sense. So it's going to be a whole separate line meter. Chargers are going to be the only thing on that meter. So the data is going to be whatever's on that meter. That was the other thing too, is I didn't know, is it per charger? Is it just on the meter itself? Just what energy is being used for it, since it's only chargers to begin with. So essentially, Brent, I want you to do all the work and then let me know the cheapest way to get the money back.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. I'll get back to you on kind of what you would need, what you'd expect from a charger, and I'll ask around too in terms of kind of what our ability would be to get that value for you, and if that's something that we could offer. We're certainly looking at ways that we could take. It's a chunk of change that's sitting out there, and if there's ways that we could take advantage of that to increase the rate of adoption, or just to make it more feasible for you guys to do sooner.
And even if it's just anecdotal information, if you talk to everybody and they're like, we have no time to spend looking into Santa Rosa's questions because it's such a busy program or hard to deal with, that's enough for me to help take to our group to say maybe we should look into hiring it out. If it's so busy and convoluted that nobody really wants to look into it, I don't want to be responsible for hoping I get the program right and operationally, if somebody else can take care of it for me.
Sure. Yeah, I know we've talked about that too. Kind of like it might make sense to do a small amount on ourselves, but you might want to figure out an agreement for larger amounts. But it hasn't been as much work as we thought so far. And I was looking back at the 2019 studies too, which had scenarios all over the place in terms of the value of LCF credits, between like $80 and $130. But the value has been more around the upper end of the credit, which is close to $200 per credit. And I know that there's been a lot of demand out there. So yeah, I think that the kind of the higher scenarios for revenue are probably realistic.
Sean, I definitely don't know a lot about our program, but I just exchanged some messages back and forth with Anna from our team. We use a company, a third party called SREC Trade, and they basically administer and manage the program on our behalf. I think the only thing we had to do was initially register our chargers with CARB. And then and I'm just looking at, we had a board item that went back in 2020, I think. Their percentages are based on the number of credits you're generating, and it ranges from 5% all the way up to 20%. And what else do I know? I think right now we're receiving about 15 to 20,000 from the 2 generators, or from the 2 chargers we have annually as part of the program. So, but I'm sure Anna has a lot more information if you want to check in with her.
Great, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. That seems like a good opportunity to look into further. Does anybody else have any other transit electrification related topics they want to bring up? Yeah, Grant.
I have 2 questions, and this is just, I started here a few months ago and getting up to speed and rereading the 2019 studies that SCP commissioned with you guys. And I know one of them, so let's see, Sean, you mentioned EV fleet. I'm curious, is there anybody else currently working with PG&E on EV fleet? Is that, I know there's limitations and timelines in terms of ordering buses.
I believe we are here in Marin.
Okay. Good to know. And then the other one too is on kind of storage and on-site generation. Has that been something that anybody has looked at in terms of either having solar on site or maybe having batteries that might reduce the peak load drawn, like if there's a certain bus that needs to charge at a certain part of the day, that sort of thing?
Yeah, this is Petaluma. We've done some analysis of that, and we know what kind of maximizing solar on our transit facility and our roofs would get us. It hasn't been a project we've had a lot of bandwidth to take on and kind of had the funding for. So I would say similar with that and the carbon fuel standards, any assistance that you guys would potentially be able to provide to help organize some of that would really be great and appreciated, because we have kind of a lot of background information on those. We just haven't really had the bandwidth to kind of put them in motion yet.
Great. Well, I really appreciate as I get up to speed and think about ways that we can help. And it's great to do a little checking about what's top of mind and what would be useful. Thanks.
Great. Thank you all. Let's move on to item number 7, which is transit fares, including the Clipper Start program. Does anybody have anything to add aside from what you talked about during your updates on transit fares or the Clipper Start program?
I will mention, I actually looked at the details of the most recent invoicing that we did for Clipper Start. And we do it for Corridor 101, so it's both Santa Rosa and Petaluma, if you don't mind, Jared. For April through, or I'm sorry, for December of 20, when we essentially started the program through March of 21, Petaluma had 37 transactions and Santa Rosa had 70 transactions. And then from April through June, Petaluma had 32 transactions and Santa Rosa had 253. So, we're seeing usage of the program. It's definitely not picking up super fast, but it's slowly getting there. I haven't seen any of the actual transactional data for July or August yet. But yeah, so far, for the last Q4 fiscal 21, Q1 had 285 uses. So that could be 100 riders using it twice or something like that.
So is a transaction a use, or is it a payment through the program?
I think it's use and payment. The way Clipper gives us the data, they just say, here's a transaction. The fare was this amount. Here's the discount. They're basing it off of the reimbursement amount, basically. But essentially each use is a fare paid under the program, at least, yeah.
I just wanted to add that I think this month is when MTC is looking for all of us to renew or extend authorization for Clipper Smart for another 18 months. For Golden Gate, we actually took it to the board originally in such a way that we don't have to go back for another 18-month extension. But just a reminder for anyone else who might not be in that position.
And that's the same for Petaluma. We intend to extend it. We wrote it in a way that we don't have to go back to our board for permission to extend it.
Did anybody else like us not write it in the way that you have to go back and now have to go back?
I've learned that
We didn't go to
lesson
the
over
board.
time. The more you can do that, the better.
We didn't go to the board the first time, so now we're going to the board to extend it.
I think we have to take it back, but we're rewriting it. I think we learned our lesson. For SMART, it looks like we had 73 start boardings in July. It's going up by about, I don't know, 10 or 20% every month, but it's still pretty low given overall ridership. So has anyone done any explicit marketing of the START program? No.
I know
We include it in our fare tables, but
Yeah.
I think MTC we really at least relied on MTC to do the marketing.
Mhm.
Yeah, they definitely had ads at a lot of our shelters and on our buses. And I think we put it on the cover of at least one transit guide.
Yeah.
And we're also extending, we're taking a resolution to extend it on Monday for our program.
Are you guys using data or language from MTC to put in the resolution to extend it, or are you just making up your own language to add to the previous resolution?
I started with their language when we did our first one and then modified it. I stuck with about 60% of what they had as their original. And then I modified it to add the language, saying like city manager's signature approval or designation, et cetera. So you don't have to keep going back every time. And I didn't put a hard expiration date on it.
And as far as advertising, I think we just, at our kiosk at the Transit Mall have the brochures. I think there's car cards on the bus itself. All the stuff that MTC put together that provided for us, I think we just kind of used whatever we could.
Yep.
All right. Any other business comments or announcements?
Dana?
Yeah.
I just wanted to check in with everybody. I wasn't able to participate in the meeting last month. And, we've got this short range transit plan meeting tomorrow. I think most of you are aware of with MTC and Bill Bacon. I haven't had a chance to reach out to Bill yet. Has anybody spoken with him and found out? I was under the impression that he was going to provide us with additional information prior to the meeting tomorrow for us to chew on, but I'm curious to know where they're heading with this. We submitted our SRTP to them about a month ago, and he hasn't really reviewed it or responded it. I think Smart, you're working on your SRTP, And part of their memo says that they actually were delaying the smaller operators until 22, 23, which was news to me. So curious to know how many people are planning on participating in that, and if they've reached out to Bill Bacon, and if anybody has kind of a clue as to where they're heading with this.
I mean, I'll be on tomorrow, but no, I have no idea what they're going to talk about, what the intention is. I haven't heard anything myself. That extension would be well met news, though, if that is the case.
I've been under the impression that it's the large operators that are required to do the short range transit plan this year or next year, and then the small operators are a year behind. That's what's been discussed at the regional planning meetings. So I was a little surprised to get the invite, but yeah, we'll see what they say. Maybe David knows more because you're in that larger group.
Right, yeah. Not anymore, but I guess, as historically we are. So we still get counted as a large operator. So yes, my understanding is MTC is looking at a couple new takes on the SRTP, which is why they're having a wider meeting. One is the possibility of a single regional SRTP based on a shared set of assumptions, since maybe not so much for smaller operators, but for larger operators, everything right now is just a giant question mark in terms of how things will look 2, 5, or 10 years from now. And so I think MTC might be a bit concerned that we're going to have wildly different assumptions over the next 10 years as part of an SRTP. And then also, I think there's some interest in perhaps rescheduling everything so that all operators are on the same schedule for production of an SRTP. So I think that's why the small operators were invited to the meeting tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see just how the discussion goes. I'm the project manager for the SRTP here at Golden Gate, and I can't imagine trying to come up with a set of assumptions for a 10-year plan at this point in time when I don't even know if we're, what's going to be happening 4 months from now. So it'll be interesting to see where things go tomorrow.
Is tomorrow
US is also in
large
the
and
same
small operators
boat.
on?
What was that?
Sorry, is tomorrow large and small operators?
I was under the impression that everyone was invited to tomorrow's meeting, but
Yeah,
I could be mistaken.
Yeah, it's both large and small operators. I'll forward the memo that Bill put out in early August and asked Dana if you wouldn't mind distributing that to everybody. So they're all, and that includes the link as well to the meeting tomorrow morning.
Yep, sure. I probably have it, but send it to me just in case.
Sounds like most everybody is going to be in on the call tomorrow. So I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Before everyone gets off, I just wanted to give a quick reminder about the 2021 funding program that SUTA put out, the call for projects. The applications are due on September 16th. And we will be bringing an information item to our board on Monday, but that is ahead of applications being due. Yep, and you could reach out to Shauna Gauze at my office if you have any questions about that. All right, anything else? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I know.
Like,
Thank you. Bye-bye.